Becoming a good photojournalist requires an understanding of the basic principles needed to shoot quality video and gather great audio to support your story. Anyone with a camera is a photographer. The ability to tell the visual story is what makes you a photojournalist. You do more than just shoot pictures. You have the unique ability to take your audience members to where the action is happening. The audience experiences the story through the video and audio you collect. You are the storyteller, and the camera is your tool. Your approach to what you cover will change depending upon the topic you're covering, but the one thing that will never change is the need to capture dynamic audio and video to effectively tell the story of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. By concentrating on the foundations of photojournalism, you'll learn the essential skills necessary to become a great storyteller. So, what are the foundations? Shot composition, audio, steady video, story pre-visualization skills, visual continuity, and the ability to shoot sequences. The more you shoot, the better you'll become, and applying solid foundation skills to your craft is the first step. Composition is the placement of elements on the screen. Good composition creates a sense of balance, harmony, depth, scale, and perspective. Composition encompasses things like camera angles, rule of thirds, cutoff points, vanishing points, and more sky, less sky. First, let's look at camera angles. A normal angle places the camera perpendicular to the subject. For example, in a typical interview shot, the camera will be at the same height as the interview subject's head. High-angle shots give a good overview of an area. They can also make the subject seem insignificant. Low-angle shots imply strength and power. Both of these give your viewer a unique look at the subject. The canted, or Dutch angle, is used for more of a dramatic effect. A subjective angle is whenever the camera represents the subject's point of view. Subject placement in the visual space is important when it comes to composing shots. We use the rule of thirds. Divide the screen into thirds both horizontally and vertically. Place the subject of the action at any of the intersecting lines and your shot will be aesthetically pleasing. This shot is poorly composed because use the rule of thirds when shooting an interview, ensuring the subject's nose is placed in the center of the screen. Allow for look room in the direction they are looking. Lead room gives the viewer an opportunity to see where the subject is going in shots where you're following the action. If you're following someone walking, you don't want them up against the side of the screen with space behind them. Proper lead room should be given if there's camera movement following your subject. There are certain shot compositions you want to avoid because they appear unnatural. They're called cutoff points. You are primarily concerned about these when you are shooting people. For instance, cutting off someone at the neck looks bad. Cutting your subject off at the elbows or the knees will also look awkward. Some common shot compositions for interviews are the full shot, the waist to headroom, and pockets to headroom.
Mosul in different jobs around the city.
New photographers often fixate on the subject in their scenes and don't evaluate the entire scene and all of the elements present. Learn to look past the subject and look at what's behind them. Trees, buildings, poles, and people can ruin an otherwise pleasing shot. Next, let's talk about more sky, less sky. This term is used to explain where the horizon rests in your shot and will depend on what you're shooting. Place the horizon in the upper third if you want less sky, and in the lower third for more sky. The worst thing you can do is place the horizon in the middle of the shot. It's visually boring. Leading lines and vanishing points help draw your viewer's attention to a point in the scene. Video is only half of the story. Without sound, the video can only communicate so much. Take a moment to just listen. What do you hear? What was that noise? You must capture that on your tape. Take the time to get close enough so you will hear the audio, or go back later and capture the sound. Gathering sound should not be an afterthought. It should be planned just like you plan to shoot your video. Audio collection ensures you have great natural sound elements, allowing the viewer to experience the story more intimately, keeping their attention fixed on what's going on. As much as possible, you should attempt to capture images that are steady. Movement that is unnatural or distracts the viewer is what we want to avoid. If you are running or walking with the camera, we would expect to see some movement, but you should still learn techniques to minimize movement as much as possible. Using your tripod is the solution for getting stable video. But if you aren't able to use your tripod, there are still many ways to gather images that are solid. Find a God pod. A God pod is anything you can set your camera on that isn't a tripod. In a perfect world, you'd always want to use your tripod, but it's not a perfect world and you're not always going to have one. So what we're going to talk about now is some of the things you can do to help shoot stable video when you can't use or don't have your tripod. One of the first things you can do is look for a God pod or a stable surface to help steady your video while you're shooting. They're all over the place. Here, I'm going to use this pylon to shoot onto the deck of this boat. Rock solid. Alright, you're not always going to be able to find a steady God pod. So now I'm going to go up on the shoulder and try and get the close-ups that I want. To help me try and get as stable as I can while doing this, I'm going to put my feet shoulder width apart. I'm going to tuck my arms in as close to my body as I can. I still would like to have 3 points of contact with the ground. I'm going to bend slightly at the knees so I'm going to have a more stable surface. Now I'm going to turn to my subject. I'm zooming in to try and get the close-up. Slowly breathing. I'm holding my breath now. And you can see that's still a little shaky. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like when I zoom with my feet. Now I've zoomed all the way out, but I'm going to try and get the same shot, only zooming with my feet. This is a prime example of a case where you don't have the space to use a tripod. You can see how much steadier that shot was, zoomed all the way out and zooming with my feet. Using the foreground and the background in your shots helps create a sense of depth and dimension and takes your footage from ordinary to extraordinary. As you're shooting, use the environment to your advantage. Place your camera in relation to your subject where you can use foreground and background effectively. Instead of framing the shot this way, move a little and use the environment to your advantage. Instead of this, this. And instead of this, this. A rack focus works well when you have an extreme depth of field and you want to reveal something in the shot that hasn't been seen before. It's not just something you do because you can. Start with one image in focus and smoothly roll the focus ring so the other image comes into focus. Make sure you practice this so it begins, transitions, and ends smoothly. If you have a shallow depth of field, the rack focus doesn't result in the desired effect. You've seen the fundamentals of photojournalism. Good composition, which includes framing your shots using the rule of thirds, more sky, less sky, foreground, background, leading lines and cutoff points, shooting steady video, and gathering audio. Now it's time to put it all together. So, how do you tell the story? Prepare yourself. Pre-visualize the story before you get there. Ask yourself, What kind of story do you want to tell, and how do you communicate it to the viewer? What is your commitment? What is your story about? Who is the central character in your story? If I told you to do a story on Fort Meade, where would you start? It's impossible to tell since the subject is too broad. You have to narrow it down. You would even have a tough time focusing on Fort Meade's morale, welfare, and recreation programs. There are so many to choose from. So what do? Focus on one aspect, like fishing, and tell the MWR story through the eyes of one person. A narrow focus helps you tell the story more effectively. A story commitment, sometimes called the focus, is the way you narrow your story scope. In this example, I'm going to shoot a story on Lance fishing. My commitment is Lance relaxes while fishing. Now, what audio and video do I need to capture to support that commitment?
Hey, any day fishing beats a day in the office.
Stay focused on the story concept while you're shooting, and don't shoot video that doesn't add to the story. You must be energetic. Shoot and move. Don't stay in one place for too long, and always be aware of what's going on around you. Understanding how to shoot and edit a sequence of shots so they have meaning is essential to the storytelling process. Sequences are a series of shots that tell a part of your story. A series of sequences collectively tells the entire story. We naturally see the world in a series of sequences without ever thinking about it, and as a photojournalist, you want to recreate this process for the viewer by shooting and editing sequential shots that replicate how we unconsciously view our world every day. A wide shot establishes the location and provides a full view of what's happening. A medium shot brings the audience in closer and identifies the subject, isolating it in more detail. A close-up shot isolates the subject completely. An extreme close-up isolates a part of the scene and provides even greater detail. Keep in mind that the wide, medium, and close-up shots are all relative to what you are shooting. For example, both of these shots are wide shots. Both of these shots are medium shots. Both of these shots are close-up shots, and both of these are three-shot sequences. Effective storytellers incorporate expanded sequences with more than 3 shots. Sequences draw your audience into what's going on and allows them to experience the story the way they might have if they were actually there. Expanded sequences make it easier for the viewer to follow the story and make the editing process easier. There isn't a law that requires you to start a sequence with a wide shot. Sometimes, an extreme close-up may allow you to more effectively tell the story, so don't be afraid to experiment with your shot selection. Just remember, you'll have to follow an extreme close-up with a wider shot that establishes where we are and what is happening. The extreme close-up shot creates a question in your viewer's mind. What is that? You must answer that question. For visual continuity, you must have cut-ins and cutaways. The cut-in looks at a specific part of the action. A cutaway looks at peripheral action and shows a reaction to what's happening. Shooting action and reaction contributes to effective sequencing. Shoot the action, show your viewer what's happening, and then allow them to experience the reactions of other people or the result of the action they just saw. Jump cuts occur when there isn't enough variation in the shots or the angle from which the scene is shot. Shoot sequences from multiple locations. Move around and get closer to your subject. This gives you more shots to choose from when editing. Don't constantly follow the action wherever it goes. Stop and allow the action to enter or leave the frame. This helps avoid jump cuts and allows you to go wherever you want in your next shot. A lack of continuity, like jump cuts, is distracting and can take your viewer's attention away from the story. Maintaining continuity of action requires paying close attention to detail. The location or the appearance of your subject shouldn't change abruptly between shots when edited. Repetitive action is everywhere. Don't miss an opportunity to shoot repetitive action because it makes for great sequences. Coming back from the field with a tape full of well-composed, steady, usable video is the result of good planning, pre-visualization, and practicing the fundamentals we've discussed. Your eye for shooting good video is something that will develop in time. Don't sacrifice quality for an effect or a shot that ends up not working because of a lack of good shooting principles. Good stories don't just happen. They're the result of planning and a strict adherence to the foundations of photojournalism. In order to be a great photojournalist, you must have a passion for this craft and a creative desire to bring the audience to the scene through your pictures and your audio.